We left off in our last video at Memorial Stadium, and of course right next to Memorial Stadium is the Fort Huron High School, and it looks like this today. A very nice looking facility. But when I graduated, it looked like this, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Fort Huron High School's had a very interesting history. Although the first 4 graduates actually graduated on 7th Street out of the First Washington School, which was later known as the McVitie Youth Center. It wasn't until 1870 that the first real high school was built, and that was on Erie Street where the college is today. You can see it in this photograph here, the bell tower going above the horizon. That's the 7th Street Bridge you see on the left, and to the right of it was the old St. Stephen's Church. This high school only lasted about 3 years and burned down in 1873, and then this one was built in 1874. This high school lasted much longer than the other one. It lasted over 30 years, but it too also burned down. That was in 1906, and then in 1908, this building here was built for the high school that we know as the college today. Around 1954 or 55, you start seeing these high school students walking around carrying these signs. What's ironic is the sign saying that this school is falling down, and over a half a century later it's still standing and doing fine. But truthfully, it had to have some money put into it. But the people of Fort Huron felt the same way, and so a millage was proposed, and they voted on it, and it passed. And so plans were made for a new high school on 24th Street. Also note that although most people think that the high school is on 24th Street, and the address is really Court Street. The 1956 class had already graduated out of this high school, and then we heard that we were going to be transferred to the new high school mid-semester. And so it was at this point that I realized I wouldn't be going to this school anymore, that we would be the last class out of this school. We wouldn't be going to this gym anymore. We'll be the last class out of this gym. But we will be the first class out of the new high school, the first class to graduate. But we'll always have our memories of the old high school and the old gym. And so construction began. Here we see the president of the Board of Education breaking ground, and we see the superintendent of schools, Howard Crawl, laying the cornerstone, or at least appearing to. And here we have the architect's drawing of the high school. Here we see one of the walls going up. A lot of these pictures came from our 1957 yearbook, and we're very fortunate to have these photographs because it gives you a pretty good idea what it was like at the beginning. This here is the gym under construction. You can see the class backboards are already up, and this is looking out into the courtyard. And one of the entrances. And finally it was done. It was time to move in. Here we see our principal, Principal Tomlinson, and Miss Wise, the assistant principal, locking up the old school. And down below here we have them opening up the new school. And here we see the cheerleaders gathering around the cornerstone of the new school. 3 cheers for the new school. Speaking of cheers, how many remember our fight song? It didn't change from the old school to the new school. It hasn't changed in years. But seeing this brought it back to me. I really do want to sing it. So I'm going to turn my microphone off and sing it. Well, I feel so much better now. Here's our first open house. Our new stage. And our information desk. This appears to be an insert that was in the Times Herald regarding the open house, and I'll just highlight a few things that are in it. I'm not sure how many people showed up for the open house, but they were expecting a lot. 10,000 it says here. And over here it talks about the latest facilities that are featured in the high school. You really can't read this insert because it's just too small, but the pictures you can see pretty well. And here they're featuring the electrically controlled curtains that divide the gym, and the variety they had for the classrooms. And on this page they're featuring the natural light that was featured throughout the building. Look at this wall, especially that long line of glass. Students took advantage of those glass windows, as you can see in this photograph here. Here it talks about the flexible design that permits easy future expansion, and that certainly turned out to be the case, as we see now. Usually when freshmen come into the high school for the first time, they're wide-eyed and a little confused. And that was true even with the seniors when we came into this school, because everything was new to us. We had the same problem of finding our homerooms and different classes as the freshmen did, so everything was equal. Another thing that was impressive to us as students coming in for the first time was that all the equipment was new, whether it was a dishwasher in the kitchen or the latest in biology equipment. And here we have a couple of pictures of the library. The first thing that we had to find in the new school was our homeroom, and this is my homeroom. Mrs. Cribbins was our teacher. How did I manage to be the only guy among those ladies? Just lucky, I guess. And this was our student council in 1957. I'm sure some of you may recognize yourself in this picture. I'm in the middle row, third from the right. And of course, being part of student council, you had certain responsibility. Everyone was assigned to a different group. And I was on the building and maintenance committee. All right, enough about me. And look at these shop photos. All this equipment, brand new. I wish I would have taken shop in high school, although I took all college prep courses and I couldn't work it in, but shop was probably one of the most important classes I had. In the 8th grade, Mr. Hobbs at Jefferson School. It kind of turned my life around with what I thought was possible, and turned my self-esteem around when I feel I could do things with my hands that I didn't even realize I could do. This was another one of my classes that I loved. I took mechanical drawing, I took machine drawing, I took architectural drawing, but I was all done by the time I entered into the 10th grade, so I never got to experience this classroom. And here we have study hall. I can't ever remember being in study hall, although I'm sure I was. It's just one of those things I can't remember. I remember all the study halls in the old school. But then I am getting older. And this is what the cafeteria looked like in 1957. And here we take a peek looking out at the courtyard. Notice there's no trees, not even a bush out there. But look at it today. Very nice. This is what the Court Street entrance used to look like, and this is what it looks like now. They've made quite a few changes in the exterior of the school. The big one is this one right here. This addition was made for the Fine Arts Auditorium, and it changed the whole look of the building, and I think it's for the better for sure. I believe they broke ground in 2004 and completed it in 2005. This came out of the 2005 yearbook, I believe. This is looking inside the auditorium and the entrance to the auditorium. You can see that whole glass wall. That's quite impressive. And the inside of this auditorium is beautiful. Let's take a look. Yes, this is definitely not your father's high school. No matter how much it changes, this will always be my high school. Go Big Reds. As Port Huron grew and the number of students increased, there was definitely a need for another high school. Port Huron High couldn't hold them all. And so another high school was contemplated, Port Huron Northern. And so the school board got together and decided they would propose a millage to the people. And the students once again took an active role in trying to get out the vote. And the people voted, and they passed the millage. And it was decided that the high school would be built on Craft Road. And this is what it looked like before they built. A very woodsy area. And so the building began. You can see the girders going up in this photograph here. And here's a aerial view of the northern complex. Another beautiful school. It wasn't long before both Port Huron Northern and Port Huron High School started to get crowded. As the population increased in Port Huron, the students increased in Port Huron, and there was definitely a need for a third high school. They decided to put that high school on 32nd Street in this building right here. Today it's Central Middle School, but it's been 3 different schools over the years. Let's look at this building from the beginning. In 1958, the Catholic high school was at St. Stephen's. It was also decided in 1958 that it was just too expensive to keep running the school, and so the decision was made to build a brand new Catholic high school on 32nd Street. And this is what that school looked like. And here you see some photographs taken from the Port Huron Catholic yearbook. It turned out to be a bad decision to build that school because by the 1960s the enrollment had decreased significantly, and a decision was made that they would have to sell the school. On the other hand, the public school system was increasing in enrollment, and they were looking for a third high school. Well, to make a long story short, the public school system purchased that building and put $5 million into it for improvements, and lo and behold, Port Huron Central High School came into being. Port Huron Central, the home of the Cougars. Here are a couple of photos taken from the yearbooks of Port Huron Central. And so Port Huron had 3 high schools: Port Huron Big Reds, the Northern Huskies, and the Port Huron Central Cougars. In Central's very first yearbook, it says this: "We've only just begun." I'll let you read the rest of it at your leisure. They had just begun, but it wasn't to be. The school only lasted from 1972 to 1980. It was one of those decisions that the board, in hindsight, wished they never had opened a third school for a couple of different reasons. One was the enrollment was declining now, much like Port Huron Catholic did. And the other was that Michigan was in a recession, and had been for some time, which meant budgets had to be cut and had to look for ways to save money, and cutting that third high school was certainly a way to save a lot of money. I always felt sorry for the juniors that had gone there for 3 years and would have graduated the following year had they not closed. And also for the sports teams. They had a sense of loyalty to a school that they thought they were going to graduate from. And lo and behold, they did not. On a more personal note, my son Scott went there for 2 years, his freshman and sophomore years, and played on the junior varsity. Here's a photograph of that team, and that's my son, number 42. And that year he was the top rebounder. If you can't brag on your family, who are you going to brag on? The school year of 1980-81 marked a year of change in the Port Huron area school district. They tried to pass a millage to help the schools, especially Central, and the millage failed. So the Board of Education had to make drastic cuts in everything possible. Port Huron Central was closed, and its students were sent to Port Huron High School and Port Huron Northern. Port Huron High and Northern were put on split sessions, morning and afternoons, with students with the last names beginning with A through L going from 6:30 to 12:30 a.m., and students with the last name from M to Z going from 12:30 to 6:30 p.m. This system was considered the best way to deal with the situation and to save money. Other changes included serious cuts in the teaching positions, all school athletics, and also a cut in supplies, textbooks, and services. Today, that facility is still called Central, however, it's now called Central Middle School. That's about all I can tell you about Central. But since we're in the area, let's just go around the corner, and I'm sure many of you remember this school here at Chippewa. So this is what the Chippewa school looked like, the whole facility. You can see the buildings there and the track and the football field. But this was taken years ago. Today it looks like this. This is a Menards store. If you're not familiar with Menards, it's another store like Home Depot and Lowe's. All right, that pretty well wraps it up. I wanted to share with you some of the differences in the yearbooks over the decades, centuries actually, of that Port Huron High had them in existence. And so I didn't have time in this video, but join me and we'll do it in our next video.